Hey friends, how are you? Good week. So, do any of you struggle with negative thoughts? In fact, if you do, that is totally human. According to Dr. Daniel Amen, a psychiatrist who has researched this subject, and in fact, he's done research on over 100,000 people's brains. He's able to scan their brains and, in fact, see the effect of negative thoughts. Well, this is what he's found. We have approximately 60,000 thoughts a day. Out of those 60,000 thoughts, 40,000 are negative. And that means about 80% of our thoughts are negative. And just to throw a little bit of fire on this, 90% of our thoughts are thoughts which we've had yesterday. So we're in a perpetual cycle of thinking negatively. We're constantly in this hardwired negative thinking modality. Well, how do we break out of this? So I'd like to share with you 3 tips on this. So tip number 1, when we identify with our thoughts, we think that our thoughts are us. We're making a grave mistake because our thoughts are not us. Our thoughts are actually recycled emotions. And according to Hasidus, according to Kabbalah, in fact, our thoughts are the emotions that we have, which is the final down chain of the entire process. In other words, from the intellectual, it graduates to the midot that we call, and then from there, it becomes an emotion, and then that thought that we have within our minds is just a recycled emotion, which is really not pinpointed. So according to the Tanya, when we actually identify that our thoughts are not us, and that we look at our thoughts and say, well, I don't have to take you into my mind right now. I could just kind of like, as the words of the Tanya, push the thought away and just go on with my own life. And there's a beautiful story about this with the Maggid of Mezrich, that some individual came to the Maggid and told him that I'm really struggling with negative thoughts. What should I do? So he said, I want you to go to my student. His name was Wolf Kitzis. And he went to his house. He knocked on his door. He knocked and nobody answers. And he knocks and it's cold and whatnot. And make a long story short, only after a while is when the Rebbe, Wolf Kitzis, opens the door. And so he says to him, the man that came to visit from far away said, why did it take you so long to open the door? And Rav Wolf Kitzis said, because the lesson is, just because someone's knocking at the door doesn't mean I have to open the door. And he said he got the lesson. He went back to the Maggid. He said, thank you very much. Just because a thought comes into our mind does not mean that we have to let it in. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is actually something that is found in this week's Torah portion, Ba'alotra, that we find that Aaron was all fired up. And every single time when he lit those candles, the candelabra in the temple, it says that he was fired. And it says, Lagid shivcho shel Aaron, shaloshina, that he was constantly on fire. How did he do it? He was constantly into it. He was the man of love, the man of peace, and he was able to overcome the negative emotions that probably came to his mind, on a daily basis, and he did it over and over again, the same thing over with the same zeal. He was pumped up, fired up. How did he do it? So we learn shalosh shina, that he did not change. He did things in a consistent way. And so actually negative thoughts come to us because we're not focused. We're not focused on what we need to do. We're not focused on the schedules that we want, the food that we're eating, the exercise that we're looking to do, the spiritual work that we need to do. We're not focused, we're not buckling down on that, and we don't have a routine. So Aaron was able to really connect to a routine, and thereby that fostered that inner fire that really overcame that negative thought, that negative emotions that he probably did have. So that's the second big idea. Well, I told you I was going to give you 3, but I'm actually going to throw in 4. So an idea before the final, most important one is as follows, and that is the 18-40-60 idea. And really, when we're 18, we think that everybody thinks about us, and we have this imaging problem, self-image thing, that everybody's thinking about us and people are talking about us and whatnot. And of course, nobody's really talking about us. Then when we're 40, and I'm hitting that stage now, we realize, you know what, I don't care what people are thinking about me. You know, if people are thinking about me, that's their fault and whatnot. And then when we're 60, then we say, or we realize nobody was ever really thinking about us. They were thinking about their own problems, their own lives. So if we just kind of like get out of that mode of thinking that, oh, people are thinking about me and, you know, and whatnot, and we have this negative type of image about us, and we realize that try to